Recording What Women Want show. I'm going to bring us live on Facebook. And for some reason in the past, we've had to go 2 times the charm live on Facebook. I don't know why, but that is what we've had to do. So I'm gonna maybe just kind of do it tonight, so I won't have to wait and see what happens.
Okay.
So here we go on What Women Want show. And next, we are recording on Zoom and going over to Facebook Live. And I want to welcome everybody to the show. So excited to have Michelle Jacobik as a guest today. And here we are. Welcome, welcome to What Women Want show, everyone. For our show tonight, your relationship with money counts. Now, I'm going to press the go live button on Facebook. There we go. Welcome to What Women Want show, everyone. For our show tonight, your relationship with money counts. Sure does. Can count a lot. I'm here with Michelle Jacobik as our guest, and we're going to talk a little bit in a few minutes about the holistic side of money and how you can attract it and what the advantages and disadvantages might be there. I'm sad to say tonight, Kristen West is out, my co-host. I don't know what she's doing, but it's probably glamorous. And I'd like to thank all of you, our viewers out there. Our podcast, What Women Want, up until this year, for the past few years, has garnered over 1.5 million downloads. So we decided to turn it over to a Facebook Live show where we can see everyone. And if you're watching right now, we would love for you to comment, to share if you like what you see. And we'd like to converse with you and interact with you. So the way to do that is commenting and liking and let us know what you're feeling and thinking. And a little bit of background about me. A lot of you know I come from the high fashion modeling world, and I went from in front of the camera to behind the camera as a magazine editor and a TV host. Now I'm back in front of the camera, and I founded a company called What Women Want Networking and Conference. And we're in our 3rd year of our annual National Women's Empowerment Conference, and it is so fun. The theme this year is It's Time We Get What We Want, November 1, 2, 3 in Atlanta. So go to whatwomenwantconf.com after the show for more information. And I am happy to say Michelle Jacobik is with me here this evening. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Hi, Judy. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited too. I was excited when I heard you speak the other evening at our New York City What Women Want event. So I thought of you immediately for the show because so many things you said resonated with me and everyone there. And I'd like to read your intro, just a little bit of background about you. Michelle is a highly sought after financial coach. Her financial solutions and divorce support programs have successfully led entrepreneurs and individuals around the country in rebuilding their financial foundations. Using budgeting tools, debt reduction planning, and saving techniques, she helps clients create a lifestyle redesign plan that allows them to forge their way towards reaching their goals. She is also the author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Prosperity After Divorce. Okay, so let's start with a little bit about your background and your story, how you segued into being an expert for women who are going through and have been through divorce.
Yeah, so, it's so interesting. If you asked me 4 years ago if I ever thought that I would be in this space of teaching people about money, I would have told you no. My last chapter, I owned an insurance agency, so I was a partner in a leading insurance agency here in Connecticut, and I stepped into that career completely by accident. Nobody wakes up and says, I think I want to be an insurance agent one day. And for me, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. At 19, I left out of my house. I had an associate's degree in business management and administration, and I thought, I'm an adult, and I had a drive, and I was chasing whatever ad said make 6 figures, right? Be able to jumpstart my life on a great note. And I was a train wreck. I left out with a complete sense of adulthood, and it was sparked, my confidence was sparked by an innate sense of a relationship with Visa and MasterCard. Thank you very much. They showed up in the mailbox they showed up in the mailbox about the same time that I had made the decision to step out. And for me, it just gave me this false sense of adulthood, and I stepped into the next 2.5 years with new car, new apartment, new clothes, vacations because I was stressed out. And I woke up 2.5 years later with a whole lot of guilt and shame and almost $20,000 worth of credit card debt.
Mm.
And
What
that
age?
really, what was that?
What age were you at that time?
So at that time I was 22 years old. So I moved
That's
out
a
at
lot
19.
for a 22-year-old.
It was quick. Yes, I came with a very a big scarcity mentality, right? That I'm going to be able to do what I want to do. And there was no qualms about my buying decisions because there was confidence that came from somebody saying, here you go. We believe you're a great risk. And I believed I was a great risk until I could no longer play the game anymore. Now, I
Right.
wasn't an entrepreneur then. I was working for somebody else, but living outside of means, completely outside of my means. And I learned very quickly that I always had very big goals. You know, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur by the time I was 30. And I thought, here I am at 22, 23 years old, and I'm a train wreck. Like I
Now,
really
did you know
felt
what type of entrepreneur you wanted to be, or you just wanted to own your own company?
no, I had no idea. I really, really didn't. I fell into
Never
financial.
entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah, exactly right. We all have this innate desire, and many of us have, you know, a desire for whatever reason, and that may be because we grew up with not much. It might be because we have this great idea. We are inventors. It's different for everybody. But I think for most entrepreneurs, it's a gut feeling that you know you've got to seek it. And for me, that was me. I had no idea what I was going to seek, but I knew that I was willing to learn. And that was the first hard knocks lesson that I learned was I had to be able to figure out how to have financial consistency
Hmm.
actually led to the financial stability that I needed in order to show up, one, as an adult, and two, in order to be able to take leaps financially, to be able to invest in a business and in my future, right? So
Right.
I was, and I thought, okay, I'm getting this completely wrong. And I had to work 2.5 jobs to get myself out of that. Now, I was in financial services working for a gentleman, and I went and got my stockbroker's license. And he was a phenomenal mentor. And he said, you know, you're young, people aren't going to invest with you. You should take a tax course. And it wasn't an H&R Block course. It was a full-blown, full year invested in learning how to do taxes, both individually and corporately, small businesses.
That sounds
And
terrible.
it was terrible. However, as from you know the next stage of my life, it was so important because while I don't do my own financial planning or I don't do my own taxes, I'm very clear when I hire somebody, whether that's social media, you need to know enough dangerous. So
Right.
that the people that you're hiring and the experts that you're hiring can bring to the table but are they really experts, right? Are they really going to have your best interest at heart when you're growing your business and you're adding people to your team? So for me, I happened to step into, out of really desperation, this financial services world where I started to learn about compound interest and I started to learn about the things that I needed to do in my life to pay off my debt. And when I talk about financial consistency, it was, what did it mean then? It meant being content with where I was, but not complacent. So I've
Right.
never not had goals, right?
And go ahead. Oh, I think there's a little delay, a little bit. I just want to give a shout out to Catherine Marshall. Thank you for sharing and having a watch party for our What Women Want show. Your relationship with money counts. Now, Catherine Marshall is the founder of Simple Fat Burn, and she's an avid watcher of What Women Want show, so I appreciate that. And Dr. Cecilia Dentino is also watching the show. Thank you so much. Kim Martin, we love all you guys. I think Michelle Jacobik has been a little frozen. She is having internet issues. Are you back, Michelle?
I am.
Okay, great. So you were talking about how you got out of your financial hole. I know it takes a lot of planning and plotting and analyzing and all that. And I would like to get into the more holistic side. The name of the show is Your Relationship with Money Counts.
Mm.
And I've learned in the past few years along the way that there is a psychological connection there to saving and investing and really planning your future. So if you could explain that a little bit. We did talk about that at the event the other night, the What Women Want show, New York City event. And I just thought you had some great thoughts, some great insight into that connection there with money and I guess mindset in a way.
Yeah, and I think, here's the thing, even in the book, right, with the prosperity after divorce, the pillars are built around figuring out what prosperity means to you. And, you and I have talked about this before on your radio show with Dr. Robbie Ludwig around there being this connection, like we put an assignment to like what money does for us and whether it buys happiness and what prosperity means to us. But at the end of the day, it's different for everybody. And our relationship with and how we really commune with it can create major blocks for us. When we come into money, if we haven't healed some of those wounds or we're coming into a new transition with bad habits or emotions that are unhealed or resentments and anger, and you've got issues in the spiritual sense, the money doesn't make it better, right? Even when we're leveling up our businesses, the devil happens in the level. So when you're leveling up, if you don't have a really good handle on your relationship with money, or even a comfort level around it not being, when you're planning, a limitation on you, or go into scarcity mode, you're just going to continue to create more prosperity blocks. And I think, one of the things that we saw when we were having this conversation last week, we talked about how many transitions the women in the room have gone through, right? So I went through this transition of, coming out of that train wreck space for me of, being not financially responsible to figuring it out really at a great age, because then I was able to take bigger leaps. I was able to buy the company that I worked for with another woman before I turned 30, grew that exponentially. But then when I got divorced, right, and emotions came up, all my scarcity mentality came right back to the surface. As a matter of fact, it doesn't necessarily go away, even when we're working through the blocks. If you asked me, I had so many clients from December until 2 weeks ago that went right backwards because it was tax time, right? They're entrepreneurs, meaning even if they had things straight, they slipped back into mindset, scarcity mindset of they may not have done it right because they weren't sure what the new tax code was going to bring as a result when they got that news from the CPA. And they were right back to, I'm not a good planner, I'm not a great business owner, even though all of the tools and the resources that they've built and the foundation that they've worked on shows them differently.
Now, does that really have an effect on how much money you're making or bringing in, or saving in a very, I guess, realistic way?
I always say that, especially when we are putting ourselves out there, if we don't know what our value is, if we're not sure about our own value and what we're worth, it's hard to invite in more. If we're not real clear about our goals and the vision we have for whether that goal is putting our children through college, whether it's leaving our corporate job and starting that dream business that we want, if we aren't sure about what that looks like and we don't have a plan, it's really hard to not slip into different mindset things. We go right into self-doubt.
My question was, if you do have a plan, how can your mindset hold you back?
Yeah, so even if you have the plan, if you don't, okay, so I'll give you this great example. We just did a self-love expo, and we talked about self-love and finances. Now, when you think about your finances, do you think about self-love?
No.
No, right? So what we want to do is actually invite in
for money, but not for self necessarily.
Yeah, right. So how do we invite in greater degrees of self-love when we already feel that money is not, it triggers us, right? Mm-hmm. So when I work these women through the process of really thinking for the first time about self-love and money, they had to release some of the things that they've been holding. Now, whether they're entrepreneurs or they're in a relationship, in a marriage, maybe they're recently divorced, there was a culmination of different women in the room. What was so interesting when I asked them to just release something, the things that came up, because I actually sit them down and you're going to them here today, right? You're going to love yourself enough to release this one thing, even if there's multiple things. And these are those mindset issues. So the things that people wrote down, I've got them in front of me, I'm going to be burning them tonight, was guilt.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, right? So guilt, stress, just stress. Letting things come back in, letting go of the guilt for taking time for myself,
Mm.
The shame and my comfortable old habits and fears around money. These are things that successful women, but they're still sitting here in their psyche at a cellular level and need to be released. So my answer is, regardless of what you have in terms of tools, are they helpful? 100%. Because to me, when we create the tools, whether that's, setting up a strategy of how to look at cash flow in your family or in your business, right? There's this tool that reminds you when you slip back into limitation mode or scarcity mode that says, no, wait a minute, that's the self-doubt voice. But what's really happening here is I've taken the steps to create knowledge in my life, to learn what I need to learn, and the tools show me that I'm planning in advance. I don't need to listen to the voice of doubt. But the voice of doubt doesn't not show up for so many people. And I know it's evident in these pieces of paper that are in front of me.
Yeah. It sounds like almost like a professional athlete preparing for a race. They have their physical rehearsals or practices, I guess I should say. Rehearsals is for actresses. And then they have the mindset practices. And if they don't have those two connecting with each other, or I should say when they do, they're the most successful. But when they don't, you can't just have one or the other, right?
Right, right. And I think that's true of anything, right? That's whether we're trying to get ourselves through school or we're athletes and, you're an actress. So you're always having to that voice of, and what I've learned in working with coaches in this area is rather than continuing to make the same mistakes even in this mindset area, it's like you can either learn from a mentor or learn from your mistakes, right? So when you just keep repeating the same patterns and it keeps showing up for you, invite in a new way of being, right? Whether
Right.
that's therapy or coaching.
It took me so many years to learn that. I mean, not even just with money, but with a lot of things, that I just thought, well, I'll learn from my mistakes. I'll just do it myself. But that's not really the way to go, especially as an entrepreneur. You really need to get someone who can guide you and help you. And, I had a big problem asking for help for a long time. So that goes right along with the whole, reaching out and getting someone to really guide you down the right path.
Yeah, and it really does shorten our timeline, right? If somebody's been where you've been, and it's why I'm so passionate about this work. It's so different from my, I stepped in and bought the insurance agency with my business partner and did that for 26 years. That was my field. But I worked with entrepreneurs. I did commercial insurance. So I was writing manufacturers and doctors and nonprofits, and I loved that everybody's story was different, right?
Well, that's what I love about you, because you seem so passionate in finding out that story first. I thought that financial planning was more of a cut and dried process. I thought that someone would sit me down and say, okay, here's your Excel sheet, give me your assets, give me your debts, and let's put them all together and see how much we can save every month. But you seem to be taking it a few steps further and really finding out the personality of who you're dealing with, and what their dreams are and what their past is, even what they're dealing with, and their mindset and the money blocks and all that. So it seems like such a great a winning combination.
It really is, because you know what, at the end of the day, I think one of the things that stops people from asking questions is that there's so much technical stuff that comes with finances. So people that have master's degrees but aren't educated in this area of money, but are afraid to ask questions, even of their advisors, right? Because if they step into a financial planning relationship and they're not at the level of the planner, or the planner thinks, oh, they have an MBA, they're talking above them. And yet they're afraid to ask questions that are emotional questions. Like, well, will I run out of money? And how do if I share the dream of I want to be an entrepreneur, right? And not have the advisor say, but you're going to run out of money, right? So yes, for me, it is a combination. It's taking a holistic approach to understand that you want to empower yourself. Women, when you think about women, we tend to be in nature so much different than men. And I'm not generalizing, but most women, I always say I have a fear gland, that men don't have. Like, my husband will attest to this. When I start to get nervous around money, it becomes a tumor. And I have to keep it in check. Men are natural hunters and providers. Women have stepped into that role. This is our time as well, but we're also managing all of these other things. We happen to be they're the hunters and providers. We're also trying to hunt and provide, but also nurture. Right? So we're the gatherers. We pull people together. We keep people together. So while we're gathering, we've also got to be gathering knowledge around how to empower ourselves and teach our children. Because at the end of the day, personal finance and this space that we're talking about, which is really about getting clear around knowledge about money and how to plan, and whether that's going to be, just taking care of the family household, taking care of ourselves if we end up being discarded from a corporate job, or we want to level up and be an entrepreneur, even sending our children to college. Yes, right? So this was one of the things that we talked about as we went around the room on Tuesday last week, at What Women Want New York. It was so incredible, like that women were putting their hand up to say, I just need to say this. This is what happened to me, and how difficult it was that I had to walk with that. And I think the most important thing that I see with women in this space around money is, and this isn't just women, I think it's all people today, because access to credit has been so easy. We have this space of, I'm not as far as I thought I would be. And with that thought comes a whole lot of guilt and shame that I can sit here and read 17 pieces of paper in front of me. And when you see guilt and you see shame and you see stress and you see somebody write, I'm angry that I'm not as far as I thought I would be.
And for people joining, just tell them what those pieces of paper are in front of you.
So these are pieces of paper where I asked people to release one thing that is holding them back in this area of money. So I always ask people, when you're going to invite in a greater degree of self-love around money, the first thing you want to do is identify, what are 3 things you'd like to change? Like, if you really think about, what would I like to change in regard to my money handling, right? So maybe that's, I need a plan. I don't like the word budget. I use it because it's shocking, like our diet. And I love to change their mindset around budgeting. Budgeting is just naming your dollars in advance. And I know Catherine Marshall's on listening tonight, and I was able to hear her speak at your Atlanta conference last year. And one of the first things that she shared was her relationship with money and how she was able to work a plan. And it's hard. It's hard to work a plan. But if you're focused on your vision, and when you said, I like to connect with people's visions and stories, it is so much easier to work through processes and learn the things that we need to learn when we understand what our why is, right? If we know the destination, for me as a coach, as a financial strategy people, if I just come in and build their budgets and give them tools and a virtual envelope system, that's all great. But if I'm not connected to what they see for their lives, what the bigger vision is of the life they want to create for themselves, their family, their businesses, then I have a huge disconnect. I'm back to technical, right? I'm giving the technical pieces of how to do things, but I'm not connected to the strategy of leading them to their goals and helping support them emotionally when they do feel like, I don't like this plan. It doesn't get me where I want to go quick enough, or they're maybe having to make up some of the things that they've lost on. Maybe you have credit card debt. Maybe they do have to take out student loan debt, to go back to school and educate themselves. And I think that being able to be connected to their vision and helping them connect to their vision, when they know what their why is, it makes some of those steps a lot easier, because they're just guideposts. I say to people all the time, if you know the destination, all we have to do is set the guideposts, and then we figure out the mile markers, the small steps that you need to take. No different than an athlete training for a race.
Right. So the name of our show is Your Relationship with Money Counts. And I played that off of the best-selling book that you wrote, Prosperity After Divorce. And I would love to know, in working with divorced women all of these years, what the number one complaint is about money when someone's getting divorced. Of course, the number one probably is, I don't have enough of it. That would be my complaint. But what besides that, as far as people's feelings or attitude towards money, has been the number one surprising thing that you've heard over the years?
I would say that the number one surprising thing for me is that there are so many women that really are not educated around this area of money. So when things are split in half, so in Connecticut, right, it's fair and equitable, things get split in half. so many of the women that seem to come to me too are, 40 and up, right?
You
So
said Connecticut?
40 and up.
Yeah,
And
before that you said in Connecticut, you dropped out a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah, so in Connecticut, it's a fair and equitable state. Everything's 50-50. So even with my own divorce, we had built everything together for 23 years, and then everything was split in half. So there's this sense of, oh my gosh, I am not as far along as I thought I was for sure, because now I'm starting all over with half, and I've already halfway through my life, right? But for the majority of people that come to me, it's the uncertainty sends them into a spin around the things that they experienced as a child. So that may be that their own parents went through a divorce and they didn't have enough, and they
So
lived
they
in
go
that.
back to the fears they used to have when they were younger.
Yes.
The trauma of the divorce regressed them back to that.
Yes. And so even if there's no trauma, some women decide to make that step, but their children go through changes and hardships. And then that brings them back to, oh my gosh, I'm witnessing what I went through when my parents divorced. So there's a lot of things that happen, not just education around money, it's education around their emotions. It's educations around, are they bringing bad habits in? Are they creating new habits? So I had a habit of, when I didn't have my children, on the nights that I didn't have them, I was masking loneliness with going out. Like, I'm going to go call a girlfriend, go to dinner, go to a networking event, go to a retreat, go to a spa, have a mani and a pedi. And I was really stepping into that becoming a habit for me, which isn't a bad habit, self-care, but my financial picture had completely changed and I was disconnected. And I think many women are disconnected because they're not educated even about this, I have to look and redesign lifestyle.
So you weren't looking at the reality picture. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and not in a bad way. From a place of, okay, it's a new start. I'm turning the page. What do I want it to look like? And even if it doesn't look like it, we're women, right? We're resourceful, but if we don't get clear about what the picture is and then what might be getting in our way, it's harder to reach that mark. So I think for me, it's mostly that women come and they're disconnected from the financial knowledge that they need, which is to not do nothing and delay, but really step in and invite themselves into the work earlier rather than later. Because what was happening, Judy, and honestly, what gave rise to the book was that women were coming 3 and 5 years post-divorce to me. And if I could meet them at the bottom of the courthouse steps and say, do it now, that'd be great. That's really, the book is there for when they're ready. But I want everybody to be ready early. I wasn't ready early. 9 months later, I woke up and said, oh, I better pay attention, because things are different. Yeah.
If you could catch them in the beginning, they would have had more of savings and more investments and just probably more of a security net than they would have had.
Yeah, but we all know we're ready when we're ready. And so, my hope is that, women really don't even think divorce, right? Because I always say this work saves marriages, right? Because so many people aren't even talking about money in their marriages. And when people are running in place, or they've been living paycheck to paycheck, or they've had their dreams even shattered of wherever they were in their business, or maybe working in corporate America. I have a client that just 37 years in just got discarded because of a merger. And now sitting here in this whole place of, was I even valuable? And trying to figure out how to dream from there, right? So if things are already difficult, how do you dream?
They got a good package.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and in her case, she did, but so many, with a lifestyle already established and 2 kids in college, that package is a little scary, right? So very daunting. So
I'm not safe, in any situation. I used to say, I'm not safe I worked for a larger corporation, and then I worked for a smaller boutique firm, and I got laid off at both. I mean, that was the beginning of the recession. But I felt like, gosh, I'm not safe at a large company, and I'm not safe with a small one, so I might as well start my own. So that was my, leap of faith and risk taking that I took back then. But at that point, I didn't feel like I had a choice even. I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I didn't feel like I ever belonged in corporate. But I did really trip into it. And so your relationship with money does count. And I love the show tonight. I really think it's brilliant how you come from a perspective of the way people feel about money and not just putting an Excel sheet in front of them and saying, okay, look, these are the numbers. Because especially women, and I don't want to diss men or anything, but we have so much more than that. You know, we have many layers to us, and we have emotions and things that we go through. And in a way, you know, we run the households, and then a lot of us aren't running our finances. So
Right.
it's nice that we have people like you to kind of, you know, be our angels and take over and give us advice. So that's amazing. So I can't believe it's already 8:30.
I can't
What
either.
great conversation. You know, when I talk with you, it's like the time just kind of, you know,
I know. One of the
yeah,
things that I wanted to add, what you just said, and we can maybe wrap with this, is,
sure. And I
women,
just want to shout out, I want to shout out to a couple of people too before we
yeah,
wrap.
yeah. So a lot of women, we do, you just talked about the inability to have certainty led you to wanting to entrepreneurship. And I think for women, so many of us we do want certainty, but nothing is certain, right? My father used to say death and taxes, right, are certain. But what you want to tune into is clarity instead. If we can't have certainty in our life because it's life on life's terms, the more clarity that we have, the more knowledge that we have, and education in this area, the easier it is, a clearer picture of our lifestyle design, the clearer picture of what our business overhead is, the clearer picture of our vision and our destination. That clarity replaces the certainty that we have no control over. And that's what I really want to empower women to do in this area of money and self-love and money, right? Being willing to love ourselves enough to do the work, because it's not always easy,
Well,
right?
I love that you said that, because clarity, I've learned, is one of the most important things you can have with the vision for your business, with the vision for, you know, where you're going with your life, personally and professionally. It really makes it easier to walk down the right path and find people like you to guide us, or, you know, whatever we decide in life, you need to have that clarity. So thank you for saying that. Where can everyone reach you, Michelle?
So everybody can reach me. My website is www.michellejacobik.com. It's MichelleJacobik.com. And I also have an ebook that I'll drop in the comments for the show.
Oh,
Um,
fantastic.
yeah, for 5 keys to financial freedom. And it's just 5 really quick tips around how to start inviting in a new way of being in this area of your money handling and setting some new strategy for yourself.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on the show. And Kim Martin, Ann Ciccone, Cindy Stewart, Karen Murphy, thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate the support and encouragement. And we are going to be back next week with another great show, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on What Women Want show page. Thank you for watching, everyone, and good night.
Good night.